Hello and welcome to this new hand review. In this hand we defend the big blind with Queen 7 offsuit. The flop comes and villain C bets 1/3 pot. I was thinking about check raising this hand, but being so extremely deep, like 120 big blinds deep, if we get it in on this flop, we're like probably only getting it in against sets um, and like ace 8, maybe sometimes against 7 8, but he only has 4 combinations of those, and maybe if he's like a bad player we can stack him when he has like aces or kings, but yeah, not sure. Anyways, we just call. The turn is not the best card. Um, Now he's betting rather big, um, like 60% something. Um, well, we still call, of course. And then on the river, again a very bad card. He fires pretty big again, like almost 70%, and we decided to fold. So now let's think about the hands um, that the villain is having for value. So when you think about it, he of course has 10-9 suited, which he bluffs on the flop and definitely continues on the river. Then, for example, Queen 10 offsuit and suited he's going to have, and then question, for example, Jack 10 on the turn. Is he betting Jack 10 on the turn this big? Let's put Jack 10 suited in there, although I think they sometimes check it. Then of course King 10 suited, they're going to bet for value and probably also bluff on the turn since they pick up open-ender. Same for King 10 offsuit. Now Jack 10 offsuit isn't opened. So Ace 10 suited. I don't know, sometimes people don't bet this on the flop, but since he used such a small sizing, he's probably also betting ace 10. And if he's probably continuing on the turn as well with ace 10 because he can hit the king and the 9 as well. So yeah, it's basically just this. Oh, and 10-8 suited. Yeah, although 10-8 suited is like Jack 8 suited, like Jack 10 suited, which they might check on the turn. And now, when we think about his bluffs, what are they going to be? Or rather, is he going to bet something for value? Um, that's what we have to think about first. Is he going to bet something for value that is worse than straight? For example, pocket sevens, pocket eights, pocket queens, jacks, nines. Although he's probably not betting jacks, neither nines on the flop. But yeah, most people probably aren't going to be triple barreling this, especially, well, they are going to double barrel, but not triple barrel, I think. So yeah, these are 49 combinations. And then when you think about all draws he might have, um, the flush draws, might also be having like 6-5 suited. Probably not, right? He might. Is he opening that from middle position? Probably. Is he going to? He's not going to fire it on the river, right? I don't think so. I honestly think he's only betting a stance for value. Yeah, what? So let me think about all the bluffs, and then I'll be. So there aren't actually that many flush draws, which he has here that bricked on the river. Um, I only found around 12, I think. Yeah, 12. And as you can see here, we have 49 combinations of value, and so only 12 busted draws. Also, he has to be betting them like this. Also with the hands with like ace 9, king 9, or ace 8 and ace 7, king 8, king 7, and he has to decide to turn them into bluff. Like, it's probably pretty obvious for him that he's not going to win if he has a 7, possibly an 8, but with a 9 he might be thinking that we are having like a hand like 6-7, 6-8, something like that. Also, possible bluff hands he might have are like hands like 6-7, also with the flush draw, but he might also be betting them on the. Well, I mean, he rather might be checking them back because he has some showdown value, but probably shouldn't, because as I just said, he probably knows he's not winning the pot with a 7 at showdown. Yeah, what else? I mean, not much, right? Is he actually like, for example, turning a hand like king queen into bluff? Most likely not. Is he betting queen jack for value, or 7s, 8s, like I said before, queens? Probably not. And even if he would, it would actually make it a lot worse for us because he has even more hands we beat. So this is actually a very easy fold on the river when you think about it. As you can see, it's really hard to find bluffs, and he's betting 70% pot or something, and as you can see, we have odds of 2.3 to 1, which means we need around 30% equity to call. And as you can see here, we have only 90% equity. That is basically against all his flush draws, so the 12 combos of flush draws, which he probably isn't betting all of them. And let's say, for example, that he has like all the 7-6s as bluffs. He's for some reason is going crazy with 5s and 4s, and then all of a sudden you can see that we might be thinking of calling. But is he actually going to do this? Probably not. Is he, for example, going to be turning king queen into bluff? See, it actually changes quite fast, because of course there are quite a lot of combos here. So yeah, but I think unless this guy is like mental and is going to over bluff a lot, because you gotta think also on the turn, what is he still going to be bluffing on the turn? It is these flush draws, It is hands with a 10, hands with a 9 maybe. But how many 9s does he actually have? Not that many, right? He has pocket 9s, but he's probably not betting pocket 9s on the flop. He has 9-8, which is probably also not going to bet on the flop. Yeah, probably not. You know, 7-9. 7-9 might bet, but then again, 7-9 on the river. Is it going to continue in the river? Not really, right? For example, hand like ace queen. It's not betting the river, right? Okay, so that's it. This is an easy fold. Now let's take a look at Pio Solver. So first of all, we check every hand on this board to the original raiser. And then this is his strategy. So he should be mainly betting, mostly the small sizing, excuse me, and sometimes big sizing. So I've again entered it here, so this is the middle position versus the big blinds, 120 big blinds deep, queen 7-8 rainbow. So he's c-betting 76%, 59% is using the small sizing, and it's with all hands, at least sometimes. Which doesn't say much, but but if you know which hand he's going to be betting bigger, we know which hands he's going to be betting big. So he's never going to be betting a hand big always, but he's going to bet like kings, queens, and sets big sometimes, like the backdoor suited draws, king check to king 9. He's going to bet big. Top 2 pairs, 6-5 suited as draw. He's going to be betting big. And checking, he's also never going to check every hand. Always. So there's no, as you can see, there's not a single hand that's only checked. But as you can see, he's checking most, like pocket 9s, 3 checks, pocket 4s or 6s, ace king, the higher suited aces, like sometimes. But most of the time it's going to be a bet. Yeah, like hands like 9-7, 9-8, 10-8 is going to be checked. Sometimes ace queen, very rarely ace queen, king queen. My cat is ruining my office. Anyways, let's now take a look at if he bets what our strategy should be. Let's take a look at our hand. So queen 7 offsuit is in fact like called most of the time and raised some of the times. And queen 8 is always being raised, or almost always. And surprisingly 7-8 is also almost always raised. Why is it that we don't raise queen 7 but do raise 7-8? Probably because with queen 7 we block his hands which we go profitably broke with, which is basically ace queen and king queen, I guess. That's about it. But you aren't going broke on this flop for like a huge amount of big blinds. Oh my god, I need to stop my cat. So this is what I wrote down for out of position players. So this flop we're calling like every queen, 8, 7, just a pair. We're also calling every pocket pair, so it's a bit surprising to me. But as you can see, the equities are very low. I should say like deuce is 0.8 chips in a 60 chip pot. It's like nothing, so probably just better to fold these against most players. Then So we fold all the weak ace highs. If we have a backdoor flush draw, we call, except with like the weakest ones. We just fold even with the backdoor flush draw. Of course, all these crappy hands we're folding. And then raising is the most interesting. So we raise 18%, which is quite a lot. So for value, we're raising 7s, 8s, 7, 8, and Queen 8. As you can see here, I've added these in Flopzilla, and it's only 24 combinations. And as you can see here, the 18% raising is like 120 combinations. So we need to find 100 more combinations to raise. Of course, these can't all be bluffs, so that's why PioSolver also raises Queen 7 often, but not always, and he's even raising Ace Queen, King Queen, even Queen Jack. He's check raising less flop, Queen 10 suited pretty often with the backdoors, and then many hands like straight draws or gut shots. And especially with the backdoor flush draw, it's always much better to choose these hands because there are turns which you can just barrel without like any, should I say it, without any problem or whatever, because you have the flush draw. Yeah. So that's about it for the flop play. Let's now take a look at how the action went. So we had Queen 7, so we called. The turn was the check. And let's take a look at which cards. So which cards are good for us? So like these middling cards, like 6, 7, 8 are best. High cards, very bad for us. Yeah. So this jack is actually pretty bad for our range and the big blind. So we then again check our whole range. Nothing to, not a turn we want to dunk on. Because if we bet, can he raise? Of course, yeah, I can, but only like. Anyways, we don't dunk on this turn. And then interesting. On this turn, villain is betting over pot. Like most of the time. And sometimes choosing like this is, I think, 65% or something. No, it's more, it's like 80%. This is like 60% sizing. So that's very interesting. He's over betting this turn, probably because there are so many draws now present. Like any 9, any 10, any no 6 not. Like, you know, King 10, Ace 10, many draws. It's really interesting. Let's say that if he on the flop bet pretty big, we got a call again, got a jack, check, and then now we also overbet quite a big percentage, but of course a lot less. So this overbetting turn happens a lot more when you bet small on the flop. Very interesting. Let's take a look at, for example, on the 4. We're still betting pretty big, but not that often anymore. Only 24%. And with the jack it was like near 50%. Or was it? Huh? Apparently it wasn't. What the fuck? Okay, I found where I went wrong. I'm still in the tree of the big sizing on the flop. I was surprised that all of a sudden we weren't like betting this 46% anymore. That's because we bet big on the flop. So when we bet small on the flop, we really go big on lots of different turns, especially turns that bring in many draws. Yeah, that's really interesting. Um, so in game, this guy bet like 63 something. Um, we are of course still calling our queen 7. Still quite a lot of EV, 90 chips in pot of 137. So we're actually pretty happy to still call on the turn. Um, if he bets, for example, over the pot, I'm pretty sure we're still going to call most of the time. Yeah, we are. So we call, and then the 9 of hearts it was, I think. Let's take a look at the run out. So the 9 is actually not a bad card for the in position player, or the out of position player, I mean, player in a big blind. Best cards are queens. Queen is best with the jack. 8, 7, 9 isn't too bad actually. Then on this river we dunk sometimes, but not really. Not often. So we should just check. Then he bets pretty big. And yeah, Pyre Solver still wants to, excuse me, call with the 2 pair. But if we look at which hands he's betting big with. By the way, Pyre Solver just likes to get it in 13% of the time for 4x pot. Fucking crazy, man. So let's do this. So he's getting it in with King 10, basically over betting pot. And then just yeah, King 6 as a bluff, and then the small. How often actually is King 10? Well, how many? So quite a few combinations, right? It's not blocked by anything, so there's 16 combinations. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Of course, he's betting every 10. Reset. What is he bluffing with? Busted flush draws. He's not often bluffing the busted diamond draws like King 7, King 8. Like the ones we assigned he would be bluffing, he isn't really. But he is bluffing the small pocket pairs, which I don't think many people fire 2 bullets on the flop of turn. I'm pretty sure almost nobody does. And he's betting these Which makes some sense because, as I said previously, you don't really want to bluff with the diamond draw because you want the opponent to have this hand. So as you can see here, he's bluffing with the ace 4 with all the combinations except the ace 4 of diamonds. Yeah, alright. I'm gonna wrap up this hand and see you guys in the next video. Adios.